Hello everyone and welcome to DNQ Football, where today we are talking through a historic day in the Mahinda Rajapaksa trophy. 2 games on offer for us today, only 3 goals between them, so it'll probably be a shorter video than the last couple. I did separate reviews last time, be sure to check those out. But today there were just 4 goals across the 2 games, but crucial results. No draws this time around in the second match day of fixtures. We're going to start with Bangladesh and their incredible, famous 2-1 victory over the Maldives. And then we are going to move on to the Seychelles and their 1-0 win over the host nation Sri Lanka. Really, debatably 2 upsets, 2 back-to-back upsets. If you're here just for the Seychelles Sri Lanka review, then you can skip ahead. I will put a section break in so that you know at what point you need to start tuning in for the Seychelles Sri Lanka game. But we're going to get straight into it, and we're going to get straight into it with Bangladesh versus the Maldives. This was a huge game, a highly anticipated game. Of course, both sides drawing on match day 1. Neither of them would have been pleased with those results. The Maldives 4-0 up against Sri Lanka, letting it go to 4-4. They'd have been devastated, but equally disappointing the result from Bangladesh against the Seychelles. The late equaliser there, making it 1-1 in that game. So both sides, that really the sides that you'd expected to get to the final, both of them, Bangladesh and the Maldives, failing to put themselves in control. So this game was always going to be a big one, and I've had some feedback from you guys, Bangladesh fans. It's been great to be in touch with some of you about that performance, what it meant and what was needed going into this game. And I think the overwhelming consensus was just needed a big response. And you got one, but it was a very different kind of game today. Certainly the first half was a half of 2 halves, really, in the first half. I thought that Bangladesh started really well. I thought that Bangladesh, yes, it was counter-attack, but it was counter-attack with a purpose. And then just 12 minutes in, of course, the goal came. Delivery comes in. It's set off. The delivery comes in. It's flicked on by the Maldives defender and goes through to the captain, Buyan, who taps it in for Bangladesh. A really, really tidy finish at the back post. And then the flag goes up for offside. And this is, I spoke already in the previous reviews about how there is no VAR. There's nothing like that in these games. And I thought that was going to be costly for Bangladesh because the flag went up. But fair play to the referee, who went over to obviously there was huge uproar. The referee went over to the linesman to discuss the incident. The ground was packed out with Maldives fans, so there was a lot of pressure over this decision. But the right decision was made. Firstly, I'm not sure if he was quite offside anyway, even if it had been a Bangladesh player that flicked it on. But nonetheless, it was a Maldives defender that flicked the ball on. Therefore, Buyan couldn't have been offside, and the captain tucked it home on the 12th minute to make it 1-0 to Bangladesh. And I think that then caused what happened for the rest of the game. I think that then caused the shift in momentum that we saw really from the goal onwards. Certainly from about the 25th minute is when that first half started to turn in favour of the favourites, the Maldives. On the 29th minute they had their first real chance. And then on the 32nd minute it was 1-1. The delivery from the corner went all the way to the back stick. It was tapped back across and Mohamed Umer was there to level the scores. The defending quite poor for that. They allowed the ball to go right the way over the top. Then it was a simple just pass back across goal and flicked in. Good finish from Umer. Great scenes, and of course the atmosphere. The atmosphere for the whole game was incredible. The Maldives support trying their best to be the 12th man for this one, but it was clear that Bangladesh, with those first 20 minutes, that frantic 20 minutes, they'd almost knackered themselves out a little bit. They were playing really well to this point against the tournament favourites. And then it went 1-1, and then they sat back and it got deeper and deeper and deeper, and it was half-time was 1-1, which I thought was a fair result, but I think if it was going one way, if that first half had played on for an extra 10 minutes, I think that the Maldives would have maybe put themselves in front. And the second half really continued that trend, the Maldives having all of the ball. The main note that I wrote down was, really, it's just hard for the Maldives because the pitch wasn't great. It looked fresh to start with, but then it started to turf up immediately. Bangladesh were very solid defensively, and the Maldives just didn't have the skill or composure to break Bangladesh down. And it was tough for them. And Bangladesh were hitting on the counter-attack, but certainly for large parts of the second half, no purpose about the counter-attack. It was just long ball. Often it was going out for throw-ins or just easily through to Ghani and the rest of the defenders for the Maldives. And really, it took until about the 70th minute for Bangladesh to then start to get a hold in the game again on the counter-attack. A few chances from long range from both sides as the second half weared on. Again, we saw a little bit of fatigue. But so far in the Mahinda Rajapaksa trophy, what we've seen more than anything is late drama. And this game, again, packed full of it. The ball through on the 87th, well, about 85th minute, the ball went through. And I have no idea what the Maldives goalkeeper was doing. I have no idea what he was doing. He comes out, I get that, closes the angle well. There is absolutely no way that the forward for Bangladesh can do anything other than kick the ball out. There's nothing, there's nowhere else that he can go. He's right down by the byline. The challenge does not need to be made, but it's a rash challenge. And the Bangladesh forward's very intelligent. Waits and waits and waits for the challenge to come in and just flicks the ball away. He just flicks the ball off the pitch, to be honest. He has no intention of keeping the ball in play. He's just waiting for that contact. And to be fair, it comes in. He flicks the ball away. The challenge comes in from the goalkeeper. Stonewall penalty, but needless. Having said that, Barman steps up. Bang! Almost top corner. It's a brilliant penalty. Under that kind of pressure late on, Maldives then pressed, of course, as they would. It was their kickoff from that point, but they'd lost the game. And it was a harsh defeat for the Maldives, to be fair. It was a harsh defeat for them. But tactically, Bangladesh did get it bang on. They came out, they went 1-0 up. They would have wanted to have held that lead for a little bit longer. They wouldn't have wanted to need the second goal. Or maybe get it in a 2-0, hitting on the counter. They did concede, but they kept to their task. They kept resilient. It was good tactical play from the manager to think, look, we're not going to go head-to-head with these Maldives players because they will be technically better than us. There's not a lot in it, but they are slightly better. So let's just sit back. Let's just hold that line and then spring on the counter. And it took them a while to get into it. As I said, it took until about the 70-minute mark before they got a little bit better going forward. But listen, they took their chances. There was very few chances for them in the game, but they took their chances and they took them well. One player I feel very sorry for is the Maldives captain, Ghani, because I think he's played well throughout the whole tournament. He couldn't have done a lot about the 4 goals that they conceded against Sri Lanka. He wasn't personally at fault for any of them. And today, the 2 goals from 2 set pieces, Bangladesh got that bang on. And Ghani not making a mistake in that. The goalkeeper and the defender who flicked it on. Those were the 2 individuals responsible. And Bangladesh needed Maldives players to make those kind of mistakes. But they did. And when the mistakes were made, they pounced on it. And they put themselves to top of the group. And you know, did they deserve to win it? I don't want to say no. Based on the balance of play and chances, you'd have to say no. But based on the tactical discipline and the mental strength of the Bangladesh side, I think that they did enough today. And listen, they'll go into this now, this final game, which is of course against Sri Lanka, who we'll get onto shortly. And they'll go in a really good spot, top of the group on goals for, goal difference of course being the same. But they will go into it having got famously their first win over the Maldives in 18 years, which is an incredible, I saw that stat on Twitter earlier, an incredible stat. But they were tactically astute and they dominated that. And they've got the option against Sri Lanka that if they draw, they're still in the final. So they have all the power. Firstly, they're massive favourites. They've beaten Sri Lanka recently in the SAF Championship. But they hold all the cards. And if they decide to defend and spring on the counter again, as the Seychelles did today against Sri Lanka, which is, I think that's what Bangladesh will do. There's no point Bangladesh attacking Sri Lanka because that will allow Sri Lanka to hit them on the counter. So they've got all the cards now. They're top of the group and they can book themselves a place in the final. And what's shaping up to be a really interesting final, a final that certainly we didn't predict here on DNQ. But I'm really here for it. I was really disappointed with Bangladesh's performance against the Seychelles in the first game. That's now not looking like a bad point, by the way. But I think at the time we were all a bit disappointed, weren't we, with the performance of Bangladesh in that game. And they've come out and they've then silenced the critics with a famous win over the tournament favourites. A word on the Maldives then. Where does this leave them? I'm hoping that if you're watching along here a Bangladesh fan, and I'd love to hear from you and I'd love to hear what you thought about the game in the comments. If you think my reflection's fair. You know, I wasn't trying to say it was a disservice by the defensive and counter-attacking play. I thought that it was tactically brilliant. But where does this leave the Maldives? Favourites coming into this tournament. They've selected a strong squad. They've gone in with a good side. And yet they've played Sri Lanka 4-0 up against 204 in the world. And they've drawn 4-4. And today against Bangladesh, their first defeat against those opponents in 18 years. Of course, a new head coach has come in, Moriero. You've got to be questioning him already. The side don't seem mentally strong. And I think that that's been the difference in the first game and in this game. I think that mental resilience, they don't seem to care much. That's probably a bit harsh, but they don't seem to. You know, they've conceded on the 93rd minute in the first game and on the 87th today. And that's cost them 3 points in the first game that went to 1 and 1 point today that's gone to 0. And that's potentially knocked them out of the tournament. They've got their last game against the Seychelles, who of course we'll move on to. But again, they're going to have to attack, and that's going to play right into the hands of the African nation. And the Seychelles will love that game. But the Maldives should be on 4 points. They should have beaten Sri Lanka, and they should have drawn today with Bangladesh. And they failed to do that. And if you're a Maldives fan, you've got to be questioning the coaching. You've got to be questioning a few individuals as well. But predominantly, as a Maldives fan, you've got to be questioning the mental resilience of your side. I was really impressed with Bangladesh today, as I've said. Famous victory for them. They go top of the group. Congratulations to them. Brilliant result. Brilliant result. And I think that they hold all the cards now and should end up in the final. I think I predicted them to end up in the final, but I thought that they would come through second in the group, behind Maldives actually. But it's not looking that way. It looks like they could potentially top the group, which would be fantastic for them. And I think in a final, now that we've seen them against the Seychelles, now that we've seen them against the Maldives, they're probably favourites now to go on and win this competition, which would be fantastic for them, historic for them. Right. If you've been watching as a Bangladesh fan, thank you so much. Please like, subscribe and comment. This is probably where you want to duck off, because now we're going to move on to the second game. And that is the Seychelles versus Sri Lanka. I am really disappointed with the Sri Lankan performance. Really disappointed with the Sri Lankan performance. The sports minister was on before the game. There was loads of people that came on before both fixtures and said about how this side now was going to the next level. I think they got a bit excited. By the scoreline against the Maldives. It was a historic scoreline, but then they've decided before a crucial game to come out and heap so much pressure on their own national side. Things like Gianni Infantino will be at the final. Sri Lankan national football programme is starting up from the grassroots up. You're going to see the Sri Lankan side improving. 2022 is the year of investment for Sri Lankan football. They have not won in 2021. I think they've played well, and I think in certain games, particularly India in the South Championship, and now, against the Maldives with that 4-4, I think they've played well and they've improved. But to then come out before a game against a bit of an unknown opposition in the Seychelles and go... And I think they even came out and said, I'm looking forward to the first win of the year. You can't do that. You can't do... If you're the coach or some of the players, you might want to get yourself in that mindset. If you're a sports minister, don't heap that pressure on the team right before kickoff. And I don't know if it was a factor, but it will certainly add to the disappointment from the fans, from the players and from everyone involved with Sri Lanka football, because they underestimated the Seychelles today. Big time underestimated them. And they were made Well, they were punished for it, weren't they? They were made to regret that. They were punished for it. I will say, in both games, there was fantastic crowds. More so in the second game, as you'd expect, with the Sri Lankan crowds filling out the racecourse stadium. But the Maldives fans in particular, at the first game as well, of course, both sides that packed out the stadium, seeing their sides actually lose, which isn't ideal for them. But nonetheless, great to see crowds like that after the pandemic that we've had. Sri Lanka had to play a different kind of game today. Against the Maldives, it was very competitive, it was very end-to-end, either side really could have won it, and the Maldives didn't tactically shut up shop and counter in the second half, which they should have. They were 4-0 up. They got a bit greedy, I think they themselves got a bit excited. Ali Ashfaq started shooting from everywhere. He did play well, but still, and then they lost it, and it was just, again, that mental collapse of the Maldives that I mentioned earlier in this video. But Sri Lanka were brilliant and showed great resilience. Today, I think they came in and they took it easy. Tactically, I think it was all wrong. There was no way that the Seychelles were going to attack in this game. And by that, I'm not disrespecting the Seychelles. I mean, the Seychelles played exactly the same as Bangladesh. We trust ourselves at the back and we'll hit you on the counter. And they did it. And to go with a back three, back five in that game, against the 4-3-3, meant that when Sri Lanka then had to push everyone further forward, the front three hit them on the counter consistently. The whole game they were hit on the counter. And it was disappointing. It was disappointing. I will say that Sri Lanka did dominate the first 15 minutes because the counter-attack wasn't working at all. The main reason, Duxon Puslas, who we'll get on to, again, another brilliant performance from him. He'll be gutted with the result. Showed his class today. And then all of a sudden there was a penalty. Now, I haven't seen it back. They didn't show a replay. On commentary, they said handball. I didn't see anything wrong with it. There wasn't many appeals. But suddenly this penalty was given out of nowhere, really. A long ball over the top. Pereira comes out, does well. Something happens, penalty. But the penalty by the captain missed. It was a poor penalty. He sent the keeper the wrong way. Pereira dives the wrong way. He's about 7 yards off his line, by the way, Pereira, by the time that the penalty's actually taken. You're supposed to stay on your line. He comes so far off. A little bit of gamesmanship there, as you'd expect from the veteran goalkeeper. But the penalty goes wide from the captain. Poor pen. With any penalty, you just have to get it on target, and he misses that chance. And then that sort of made that allowed the Seychelles back into the game. I don't know, psychologically, you'd think a missed penalty would damage the Seychelles, but the fact that they were getting that chance made the game way more even. Defensively, Sri Lanka weren't too bad, but they could not get the ball out of defence. The ball went into the defenders. They couldn't get the ball through the midfield. At most, it was going to Hamilton, who had to set it back. The amount of times that the Seychelles won the ball in the Sri Lankan half, it was criminal. It was absolutely criminal. But there was a moment that I think changed the game, or could have changed the game. On the 24th minute, Matteo, number 14 for the Seychelles, goes in on Dylan De Silva. That's a red card challenge. I've said in the first game, the 4-4, that the Maldives were lucky to be still with 11 players on the pitch because of the challenge that came in from, can't remember who it was actually, for the Maldives. But again, it was on Dylan De Silva. That I thought was a bit more dubious. This one's a stonewall red. This one is, he gets the ball, but only because he gets the entirety of Dylan De Silva. It's a horrible challenge. It's a straight red. And actually, Matteo deserves no praise for this performance. He was awful today. He was awful. I don't mind a player putting in big challenges. He was disgusting. There was a number of challenges that he put in on a number of players. Horrible. He's not a nice player. And he doesn't deserve any plaudits, the right back for the Seychelles, because he was nasty today. And it started from the 24th minute with that should have been red card challenge. And then the referee just lost control of the game. I thought the referee again today, I've criticised refereeing performances throughout this tournament. I thought he was awful. He allowed the players to get frustrated. The red card challenge wasn't even given as a free kick, by the way. Throw-in came in, it was then cleared, and it was Razik then put in a nasty late challenge. And tempers were flying by this point. But that allowed Moti to step up, the number 10, compared to Ronaldinho by the commentary team in this game, which I enjoyed, to step up and fainted to deliver the ball into the box. Pereira came out as if to come and claim a cross and realised that actually Mutti had gone for goal. And Pereira had to backtrack. Eventually, almost gets a hand to it. It doesn't have to in the end because it just clips off the top of the bar. And then from this point, the Seychelles just started shooting, which I actually enjoyed because Sri Lanka didn't have barely any shots today until the last 5 minutes. And the Seychelles, they'd win the ball high up and they just shoot. And you know what? One of them's going to go in. One of them is going to go in. It didn't go in for a long time for them. It actually took until... When did the goal go in? It was half-time. It was 1-1. Oh, yeah, and then there was 50 minutes. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. 50 minutes of nasty scenes. The captain had to be taken off. Sri Lanka had a period of good play at the start of the second half. I didn't see anything in this challenge. I'm sure some people at the game, and I'm sure that Seychelles fans will say it was a red card. Puslas sprays the ball out wide. There's a poor bit of control and the ball goes out for a throw. And all of a sudden the captain is down, the Seychelles captain. And he's got to be stretched off. Clearly something to do with his head, to do with his neck or his shoulders. He has to be stretched off. It looked nasty, but I didn't see a challenge and we didn't see a replay. And I'm not sure why, but if it was a nasty challenge, perhaps at this point it could have been 10 versus 10. It certainly should have been 10 versus 11 for most of the game, but it could have been 10 versus 10. Yeah, another tackle came in on Harsha Fernando from Matteo, the number 14, the right back for the Seychelles. And this tipped me over the edge, really. We're thinking that he's just a nasty player because it was another big tackle on Harsha Fernando. Harsha then, moments later, had to go off. And the tackle that came in on the 60th minute, Harsha Fernando was off on the 67th. When the corner came in, that was a brilliant goal. It was brilliant. The marking was awful, but it was a brilliant goal. And Hele, who for me was man of the match today, for the Seychelles, it was easy. Just outside bang, nod goal, 67 minutes. And then, the game descended a little bit into madness, some nasty challenges going in. Sri Lanka had some chances late on, but nothing clear cut. And I'm going to apologise now if you're a Seychelles fan because I'm just going to moan a little bit from a Sri Lankan perspective. Tactically all wrong today. I have no idea why Govindu Ishan didn't start. I had no idea why Fazal didn't start. And I had no idea why those two players came on for Hamilton and Dylan De Silva. At no point did they have all their best players on the pitch. I thought that Puslas would have been man of the match if it wasn't for Mele. Mele was man of the match. I think that, I'm talking about doing a team of the tournament. Pereira should be up there in between the sticks, but he has conceded 5 in 2 games, so it's harsh to say that. Whereas the Seychelles keeper, of course, has only conceded 1. But the centre-back, Mele, was unplayable today. Whether it was Razik, whether it was DDS, whether it was Ishan, whether it was Chimera, they didn't faze him, and he was a brute today. There were some good players, so let's run through both teams. For Sri Lanka, I thought that Pereira played well. I thought that Puslas and Dilshan in the defensive line, as well as Chimera, who played right wing-back, played well. I thought Hamilton was playing well until he was taken off. I didn't think that Razik had his best game. Dylan was man-marked out of the game, fair enough. But that's when you need to, instead of then just taking him off, you need to accept that your opposition's identified him as a danger man and use him as a dummy. There was 3 players on Dylan all the time, so when he drops in to that attacking midfield role to pick up the ball, the tactic needs to be, okay, then there must be space in behind. He can't have 3 players around him and there not be space elsewhere. It's physically impossible. So tactically it was all wrong today. It should have been 4 at the back, should have been Marvin sat in the CDM role, and then a front 5, 2 attacking midfielders and a front 3. Dylan, as that central striker figure, could have then dropped into the hole. Marvin would have had way more space to clip the ball in behind, and they'd have tested the back line a little bit more. It was awful tactically from Sri Lanka today. And the Seychelles deserved it. The Seychelles, if they'd have been a little bit more clinical late on, could have easily caught on the counter-attack as well. I don't remember any big chances. There was a lot of lashed efforts that went miles over the bar. The Seychelles keeper never really troubled. And listen, the Seychelles are now joint top. They're behind on goals for in this tournament. Will they reach the final? It's going to be interesting. The Maldives still have a chance to reach the final because the Seychelles aren't the strongest team in the tournament. They played well today. They deserved the win today. But if the Maldives win, of course, by enough goals, they can turn around that margin and go ahead on goal difference. They'd have to win by 2 goals. A 2-0 Maldives win or something of the like would see them into the final on 4 points. For Bangladesh against Sri Lanka, same sort of thing. Sri Lanka have to win by a 2-goal margin. I don't see them doing that. I don't see Sri Lanka winning, actually. I see Bangladesh comfortably hitting on the counter and scoring from some chances. Their only saving grace might be Puslas if he brings in another phenomenal performance. DDS and Razik. There's a chance for Sri Lanka. I'm not going to rule them out, but it's tough now. They had to get at least a point. They had to win today, actually. With Bangladesh in the last game, they had to win today, and they failed to do so. I see now nothing other than Bangladesh reaching the final, but really the key game for me is Maldives versus the Seychelles to determine the other side in the final. It's all to play for, I think, because I can see a 2-0 Maldives win. I can see it. The Maldives have scored 5 in this tournament. Seychelles have only conceded 1, but that's why it'll be interesting. The other game, I can only see Bangladesh beating Sri Lanka, unfortunately, and that'll see Sri Lanka out. But listen, if you're from Sri Lanka, I want to know what you think about... Firstly, it's great that Infantino is going to be at the final. It's great that there's the investment, and it's great that they're looking at the infrastructure in the next generation. But what do you think about saying all of that before this critical game? Do you think it affected the players in any way? Has it made you walk away feeling different than if they hadn't have said it? Or am I talking utter nonsense? Your opinion is as good as mine, of course. If you're a Bangladesh fan, you're hopeful now that you reach the final, and you're probably thinking of yourselves quietly as favourites for this tournament. That's all from us. That's the highlights discussed. There wasn't anywhere near as many highlights this time. If you get the opportunity, do subscribe. It's been great to have you with us. And, well, I would say watch back over our pre-tournament predictions, but it's looking like we got them very, very wrong. So feel free to choose from either of these videos to watch next. We interview international footballers, and we also talk about football shirts. There's lots of things to come on the channel, so do like and do subscribe. It's been great to have you with us. We'll see you next time.